Hello, everyone. I'm Edie Taylor, and welcome to my third podcast, Milling Around Hershey's Mill and Beyond. Today's subject is the art exhibitions in and around Chester County and Philadelphia for the month of August. I'm thinking, it's going to get pretty hot, and nothing better than to go to a museum on a hot day and enjoy the cool environment and the beautiful creativity that we have. And so today we will look at four different places that are kind of favorites of mine. Obviously, there's numerous galleries and other museums, but today we're going to focus on what's happening at the Barnes Foundation, the Brandywine Museum of Art, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and the Wharton Esherick Museum, which is right here in Paoli. So lots of things to do this August, and we'll get started right away with the Barnes Foundation. Here's a picture of the Barnes exterior that I took last July. It was sort of, I think, around 8 o'clock at night. We had finished a reception, and look at the light on that building. And of course, the reflection of the trees in the pond. And it just is one of these places that is so tranquil and a lovely place just to sit on the grounds even. So I absolutely love going there. And even more exciting is this exhibit that I saw last week, From Paris to Provence, French Painting at the Barnes. And this is there until August 31st. So you have another month, but this is really something to take in because what they're doing is they've closed the first floor of the Barnes for some renovations. And they came up with the idea of looking at the artists from that painted in Paris and in Provence and comparing them in a different way. In other words, the paintings were taken from the original collection and then placed in a different position to have a comparison and to really look at how place influences an artist. And of course, the artists that they're including include none other than, of course, Claude Monet, Pierre Auguste Renoir, and Edouard Manet. But what's interesting is when you start looking at the two comparisons of paintings, you start to see influences that maybe you wouldn't have seen based on the arrangement in the main building. So you start to see really a huge influence that Renoir had on many of the painters. And of course, many of these artists went back and forth from Paris to Provence. And there were several places in Provence that had enormous influence. For instance, Aix-en-Provence for Cézanne and others that lived in various even coastal towns in Provence. So this exhibit is something that I think you'll enjoy. It's open, the Barnes is open Thursday to Monday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they offer exhibition tours Monday to Thursday at 1 p.m. You can still obtain highlight tours even though the first floor is closed. Excuse me. And these are offered at 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Thursday to Monday. So well worth going down there. And also they have an excellent restaurant. You could really make a good day of being down there. The exciting thing that's coming up is the Henri Rousseau, which starts in October. They haven't released the exact date, but we know that it's upcoming. And I think this is going to be a blockbuster. Excuse me again. And then the other exciting issue or thing that's happening there is that the Calder Foundation opens this September, around the third week of September. And this will be managed by the Barnes Foundation, and it will feature not only the works of Alexander, but his father and his son. So it's three generations of Calder and they will have sculptures outside and then, of course, artworks on the inside. It's a beautiful building and I think will be exciting to see. Now, the Barnes doesn't come for free, unfortunately. So as an adult, you have to pay $30 for admission, unless you're a member, and $28 for seniors. If you plan on going down there, and of course the membership is good at the Calder as well, if you buy a Barnes membership, it might make sense if you think you're going to go a couple of times. I think if you go 3 to 4 times, you'll have saved money. So something to think about because there are a lot of upcoming lectures, and the best way to keep track of all that if you're not a member, because the members get emails, you can go onto the Barnes Foundation website and see all of the different events that they have planned. So I hope you'll enjoy that. It's like taking a trip to France without leaving the Philadelphia area. Now, if you're not really willing to go into Philadelphia, locally we have the Brandywine River Museum of Art, and the Brandywine is located in Chadds Ford. I took this photo several years ago before they actually had renovated the courtyard. So you still see the old stable. Now they've opened it up and there's beautiful stone floor, and they're using that as an event space for weddings and other fun activities. They're also still doing renovations to waterproof the museum. The front entrance is boarded up right now, so you have to take their long ramp to get up into the museum. But this will all pass, and it is a wonderful place to spend time on a hot day. And also, once you get inside, you have wonderful views of the Brandywine. So what's happening there? The exhibition's on view. First, this earthen door, Nature as Muse and Material. It opened on May 24th and goes through September 7th. So you still have a little more than a month to go and see this. And this is really a fascinating exhibit because it is based on Emily Dickinson's garden. And Emily Dickinson was actually more in her lifetime known as a gardener, not a poet. It was only after her death that her sister found her poems and published them that she became known as this poet. She was an avid gardener and collected various plants from her garden and created this book of plants called an herbarium, which now resides in the Harvard Library. And it is so fragile that they have made a digital replica of it. And the two artists that created this exhibit are photographers, and they were able to have access to that and then grow similar flowers. And then using old methods, they would do two different techniques to extract the pigments of these various plants. And of course, sometimes a plant might look yellow, but what comes out when you squeeze it, it might be purple. And of course, these are photographs that they made. And they do have a wonderful video in the beginning so you can understand the process they went through to obtain these gorgeous colors. So in a sense, it's quite abstract, but in the other sense, it's trying to focus on not only Emily Dickinson's garden, her poetry. And so some of these images relate to the first line of her poetry, but also it points to the need for conservation, to promote pollinators, and also to eliminate invasive species. So they actually went to one of the Brandywine Conservancy's land grants, which was the Waterloo Preserve, which is located in Devon. I've not been there, but they hooked up with the naturalist that is there, and they took their various invasive species and made cyanotypes from that as well. So I know this sounds complicated, but once you go in there, the video explains their process, and then the didactics, the labels are really well done. And I think this is an exhibit that if you're a nature lover, of course you would love it. If you're a photographer, this is a really interesting idea of how to use photography because they are having to make the photographs because the original photo prints are very fragile and will fade over time. So they had to make an image as soon as the process was done. So I know that probably is a lengthy explanation. Hopefully it makes sense, but I would encourage you to go and look at this because I really had no idea that Emily Dickinson was a gardener. And I know there's many, many gardeners here in Hershey's Mill and a fantastic nature group that any of you folks, I think, would be enjoyed this exhibit. But I can't not talk about Andrew Wyeth at Kerner Farm, The Eye of the Earth. This opened recently on June 22nd and goes until September 28th. This is amazing. And this particular program is really looking at how the Kerner Farm was a staple in Andrew Wyeth's work for decades. And of course, there are many, many artists that use certain subject matter, but Andrew Wyeth really goes deep. And the other thing that you learn, the more you look at this, is it's not only what he's painted, it's what he's left out of the paintings. And Andrew himself considered himself an abstract artist. So when you look at these paintings, and you can go on Ring Road and see Kerner Farm. And in fact, in the summer and fall months, they run bus trips. You pay an extra fee to go see the Kerner Farm, which I've done. And it's an old farm, um, but it is absolutely beautiful. And of course, the other thing that Andrew Wyeth did is he really limited his palette. And so they're focusing on that and trying to show how he really is um, not only he's painting how he feels about the subject, and he returns to this subject again and again, and of course the people that lived at Kerner Farm. So this one is really an incredible show. It was done in conjunction with the Rinalda Museum in North Carolina, and so that's where it started. And they've done a video too of Kerner Farm because I'm sure most of those folks in North Carolina have not been there. And that's also useful for you to see. And then there's also a very early works of Andrew Wyeth when he was age 16 and 17. Very interesting to see that even at a young age, he was an incredible artist. Now, last week we opened this small exhibit called Artful Deceit, Trompe l'oeil, and the Pursuit of the Real. And these are the old favorites that typically would have hung on the first floor, which is also closed right now for waterproofing and renovation. And it is really fun to go into the Strawbridge Gallery on the second floor and take a look at these because they're so realistic, so hyper real. You just feel like you could touch them and they're right there. And one of the most fun one is a painting of a stamp and the real stamp. And it asks you to figure out which one is the true stamp and which one is not, which one was painted. And it's a really fun exhibit. So Brandywine is open Wednesdays to Mondays from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The admission is $20 for adults, $18 for seniors. And again, this is another one where if we're so close, it might make sense to join as a member because then you can go as often as you like and take in the views of the Brandywine. I was down there today. It just looked gorgeous. There's plenty of seating on the second and third floors where you can just look at books that they have lying around and look at the um, beautiful environment, the nature that is just outside. And so this one is another personal favorite, I have to say. Now, The Wharton Esherick is really close by. It's in Paoli, and we did a program last year where I interviewed the curator from Wharton Esherick and the curator from Brandywine Museum of Art. And the exhibit that they put together was called The Crafted World of Wharton Esherick. And they did a catalog, which was absolutely a beautiful book. And they took about 70 pieces from the actual studio, and it was exhibited in Brandywine, and it's now at another museum. And so presently, if you go to Wharton Esherick, they've crafted this exhibit called Art, Work, and Everyday Life, a new look at the Esherick studio. And because they have taken out some of these iconic pieces, they've gone into storage and brought out things that have never been seen by the public. And so this is an ongoing exhibit. It did not say that it was going to be ending. Maybe it'll end when the museum closes in the winter, because they are only open through December. And then they open back up in March. So that one would be a nice Sunday afternoon exhibit to go see. And of course, you do need to make reservations here. And admission is $20 for adults and $17 for seniors. So they limit the number of people on a tour. And I'll get to that in a moment. But all of you woodworkers out there, you should probably take in Wharton Esherick's Museum's 31st annual juried woodworking exhibition. And the theme is renewal. It opened in June, but it goes till September 7th. So that's Labor Day weekend. And he, of course, Wharton Esherick did a lot of woodworking, made furniture that was absolutely gorgeous. He really started one of the founders of the studio furniture, like art furniture movement. And so this would be another great thing to see. Now, they have two different tours. One is Experiencing Esherick, which is a 60 to 75-minute tour, or you could look to, if you're interested in the architecture, and the museum itself is very quirky, very unusual, and a lot of fun. And so Esherick and Architecture Tour is 75 to 90 minutes, and you can sign up when you call. So they are open Wednesdays to Sundays from March to December. And again, this would be a great way to spend, say, a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon enjoying the creativity of Wharton Esherick. And the fact that he was so close to us is really amazing. And his pieces are collected by other museums. I know there's at least a gorgeous fireplace that he carved that's in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. But really, he was well known nationwide. So a great place to spend some time. And then the Philadelphia Museum of Art, for those of you who are adventuresome and want to go into Philadelphia, they have many ongoing exhibits, but I'm wanting to highlight two. One that's on view right now called Boom, Art and Design in the 1940s. And it's closing September 1st. And this is a little bit like some of the other exhibits we've talked about, because it's focusing on how artists during this period of the 1940s, we had the Second World War, we had rationing, we had a lot of things going on around the world. And it was a very tumultuous time for everyone, and including the artists. And they brought all sorts of, they're showing here all sorts of media, fashion, textiles, craft, all of this, and showing there the artist's interpretation of the times. And so this one would be a good one. And even they're open late on Friday nights. You could go down and see the exhibit and then have dinner, or vice versa, you know, go after the museum closes. Now, in November, for the holidays, they are acknowledging the surrealism movement, and this exhibit is called Dream World, Surrealism at 100. It opens November 8th and goes until February 16th of 2026. And this should be a blockbuster because not only do they own many pieces of surrealist art, but I'm sure they've been collecting from various other museums and private collections. So this is one to put down for the holidays. If you have guests, this would be one to take people to go see. And then, of course, if you really got energy, you could then go over to the Barnes and see Rousseau. So the Philadelphia Museum admission is $30 for adults and $28 for seniors. So check the website. I have not ever had problems recently going there and getting in. It's not like Wharton Esherick where you really do have to reserve in advance. And the Barnes tends to like you to reserve in advance as well. So I would encourage you to, plan your weekend or your weekday in advance so that you don't have any disappointments. So there's lots to do. I want to thank you for watching Edie Taylor's podcast, sponsored by Hershey's Mill Technology Committee. And we welcome comments and suggestions. And you can contact us at the email edtaylorhmpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.